Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something really foundational. We're looking at excerpts from Liebe, Erinnerung und Offenbarung in Führung. That's love, memory, and revelation in leadership. And it's philosophical, definitely, but also incredibly practical. Really challenges the idea that leadership is just about skills or, hitting targets. It suggests it's tied to something deeper.
It really is. It gets right to the heart of it. Our deep dive today, it's not about being sentimental or anything like that. It's more of a close look at the hidden architecture of how we influence others. We're trying to unpack this subtle but really profound difference the text highlights between two ways people come to understand connection and how that shapes, well, pretty much everything. Conflict, teams, forgiveness.
Yeah, it sets up a huge question for anyone listening, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether you manage a small team or a whole company, why does how you learned about love, your own personal history with it, maybe stuff you don't even think about, why does that affect how you lead, how you forgive, how you actually see the people you work with? Does that origin story shape your decisions now?
Oh, absolutely. It has to. And the core idea that's going to guide us through this is this distinction the author makes. It's between love carried as memory and love experienced as awakening. Think of it like an inheritance versus a hard-won discovery. Understanding both. That's key to leading wisely.
Okay, let's get into that distinction. Because the source doesn't just throw these terms around lightly, right?
Yeah.
It talks about this quiet difference between those who sort of grew up with love, like it was just there, and those who had to really search for it, maybe figure it out much later in life.
Exactly. And it's helpful to think of them less as rigid categories and more like gravitational pulls inside us. They shape how we naturally lean towards security or threat. So the source starts with path 1, love remembered.
Right. And this path describes people who learned about love early on through consistent affirmation. The author uses words like safety, trust, small gestures, things that told them, you belong here. They had that bedrock.
And because that foundation was built early, love isn't something they had to chase. It's carried inside them, not like a lightning strike, but like a constant memory, almost like the climate of their inner world. And because of that, the text says they move with the calm of knowing. They aren't desperately looking for proof they're okay because they kind of carry the receipt already. Their natural role then in leadership or a team is often to sustain the light, to keep the good energy going. They're the steady hand.
Okay, so that's the remembered path, and there's path 2, love revealed. And this sounds like a completely different journey. This is love found later, maybe after years of searching. The source gets quite poetic here, searching through abscess, hunger, the long silence of self-doubt. That feeling of being unseen seems key.
It's absolutely defining. That experience means they carry love differently, not as a gentle memory, but as this traumatic, life-altering awakening, like a revelation that finally broke through. So their energy is different too. The text describes it as the trembling awe of their first sunrise. It's profound. Because they've navigated the darkness, they found their way back. Their role is often to remember how to bring the light back when things get tough. They're the ones who understand recovery, who know what failure and doubt feel like from the inside.
And this is where it gets really interesting for me. You might think, okay, the remembered path sounds better, easier, but the text seems to say no, both paths hold something incredibly valuable. That leader from the revealed path, they have this fierce, earned understanding of what it's like to lack something essential. And understanding the remembered leader might struggle to grasp in the same way. It means your history, even the hard parts, becomes this unique asset.
Exactly. It reframes personal pain into professional wisdom almost immediately. And whether love came easily or you had to fight your way back to it, both experiences point to the same fundamental truth, which is that love, real love, especially in a leadership context, isn't about possession. It's about presence.
Let's dig into that possession versus presence, because that feels central to everything in management, doesn't it? Possession sounds like ownership, control, expecting something back, like, I gave you this opportunity, now you owe me X result.
Exactly. And possession is inherently fragile. It sets you up for disappointment, fear. It's transactional. Presence, though, presence is just about being fully there, attentive, available. Without that demand for an immediate return, the author is really clear. Presence is what's left when the job titles fade, when the project succeeds or fails. It's the truth of the human connection that remains.
Okay, but let's be practical. In the day-to-day pressure cooker of business, how do you maintain presence without demanding possession? I mean, you're paid to manage performance, right?
Yeah.
That inherently involves demanding certain outcomes. How does that work?
That's the crucial bridge, isn't it, between the philosophy and the reality on the ground. Presence doesn't mean you stop caring about results. It means you stop possessing the person delivering the results. So think about a tough performance conversation.
Mm-hmm.
A leader coming from presence, they see the person's value as separate from the specific mistake. But a leader driven by possession, they might see the person as the mistake because they feel like their expectation wasn't met. They feel cheated. Making that mental shift, seeing the human story behind the metric, that's the bedrock of leadership that actually lasts.
Right, and that shift connects directly back to how these origin stories impact leadership style. The text says leadership isn't really taught in a course. It starts with knowing deep down that everyone you interact with has an unseen story, a history of either remembered love or that struggle towards revealed awakening.
And if you accept that, truly accept it, then your whole approach has to change. It becomes less about just managing tasks and more about creating the conditions for people to actually flourish. So let's look first at leadership from abundance. This flows pretty naturally from that remembered path.
The core idea seems simple. They lead from abundance because, well, they remember feeling safe and like they belonged. They have that internal baseline of security, and they tend to project that outwards.
And that translates into some really valuable leadership behaviors, especially around relationships, because they remember how things can be repaired, how trust feels secure. They tend to forgive easily. They see a mistake as just that, a mistake, not the whole story of the person. They offer forgiveness because they believe in repair. And also that inner sense of belonging. It often creates this inherent calm that steadies a room. Sometimes before they even say a word, they act like emotional anchors. They maintain the existing positive culture because keeping that light on feels natural to them.
Okay, but here's the flip side. The text points this out quite strongly. That inherited calm, that easy abundance, it can be a massive blind spot. How does that kind of complacency actually show up in a team, especially when things get tough?
Well, the risk is pretty significant, and it often comes down to a failure of imagination, really. If you've always felt fundamentally secure, it's genuinely hard to truly get what deep fear of scarcity feels like, or that crippling self-doubt some people carry. So this complacency might look like being unable to handle big disruptions well, because the remembered leader just assumes the safety net will hold. They might unintentionally downplay the anxiety of team members facing uncertainty, layoffs, restructuring. They might see it as just turbulence because their core sense of safety isn't threatened in the same way. They constantly have to challenge that assumption that their baseline is everyone's baseline.
Wow, a failure of imagination leading to a failure of empathy. That's quite pointed. Okay, so if the remembered leader needs to guard against complacency, what about the other path? The source calls this leadership from revelation, forged in struggle.
Yes. And that journey from being unseen to finally being seen is absolutely central here. Their defining trait is profound. They know intimately what it feels like to be invisible because they lived it. This isn't just sympathy they've read about, it's bone-deep knowledge. And that gives their leadership this realness, this authenticity you can't fake. They've walked through that silence.
And so their actions often focus on visibility, like actively trying to counteract that invisibility for others.
Exactly. Because they remember being overlooked, they make a conscious, sometimes fierce effort to make others visible. They're the ones who might intentionally draw out the quiet person in the meeting or champion the expertise that isn't the loudest.
That makes sense. It connects to what the author says about their empathy having texture.
Yes. It's not just a general, oh, that's tough.
Yeah.
It's specific. It resonates because it's built on knowing difficulty firsthand. So when they offer advice or guidance, it carries what the text calls the tremor of lived awakening. It's not just theory from a book. It's wisdom earned through getting things wrong, falling down, and getting back up. When they speak about struggle or recovery, people lean in because they hear the ring of truth.
And they're the ones who bring the light back. That's powerful. It implies they see potential even after big failures.
Absolutely. They see possibility where others might just see damage. They recognize that growth can come from the darkest places. They know firsthand the energy it takes to pull yourself out of a hole, and they respect that struggle immensely in others. They champion the comeback.
So when you put these two styles together, the steady calm of the remembered leader and the fierce restorative focus of the revealed leader, what's the common thread?
I think the core synthesis the text points to is this. Regardless of how you got there, leading with real love means you've encountered pain, yours or others, and you still choose openness. You still choose tenderness. You still choose vulnerability. It's a conscious choice made after the fact.
Okay, that's the crucial juncture, right, where philosophy meets the messy reality of the workplace. Because it forces us to confront that big question. Is leading with love just, naive.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it seen as weakness? Especially in hyper-competitive fields, tenderness isn't usually the first word that comes to mind for effective leadership. It sounds like poor boundaries.
And the source material pushes back on that hard. It says, no, this isn't naivete, this is resilience. It's a choice you make after you've met pain, after disappointment, maybe betrayal, and you still choose not to shut down. It's almost an act of defiance against becoming cynical.
Let's really spend some time on how the source redefines strength here, because this cuts right against the grain of typical business thinking, where power means control, armor, being tough.
It draws a really clear line. Control, the text suggests, is reactive. It's what we do when we're afraid of losing authority, afraid of uncertainty, and it's brittle. It depends entirely on suppressing things. The author states it plainly. Strength is not control.
Okay, so if it's not control, what is this different kind of strength, this true strength?
True strength, as this text defines it, is the courage to stay soft when every instinct, every pressure is telling you to harden up.
The courage to stay soft. That sounds beautiful, but also really difficult. Let me push on that practicality again. If I'm a leader and I choose to stay soft, stay open, vulnerable, empathetic in a tough environment, aren't I just asking to be exploited? How does the text define softness in a way that isn't just being a pushover, lacking boundaries?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it points to the wisdom needed. Softness here isn't about having no structure. It's a quality of your approach. The courage to stay soft means your decisions, even the hard ones, remain grounded in empathy. It's not about being permissive, it's about being receptive and flexible. Think about materials. A soft material can absorb impact, it can bend without breaking. Something that's hardened, under enough stress, it shatters.
Ah, okay, so the hardness, the armor, it's a defense mechanism that actually makes you more brittle in the long run, sacrificing adaptability.
Precisely. The moment you harden completely, you lose the capacity to truly listen, to adapt, to respond creatively to the unexpected. True strength is having the courage to keep that human connection intact, to acknowledge the impact of a decision even while you're enforcing a necessary boundary or delivering bad news. Take layoffs, for example. A hard leader might focus solely on the process, the severance, getting it done quickly, minimal contact. A soft leader showing this kind of strength handles that same difficult truth with dignity, with presence. They don't shy away from the discomfort, but they make sure the person feels acknowledged as a human being, even in that awful moment.
That really clarifies the choice.
Yeah.
It's about recognizing the power you hold, the impact of your decisions, and still consciously choosing tenderness in your execution. And as the text says, this isn't a one-off decision. It's something you choose again and again, moment by moment, especially under pressure.
Exactly. Every challenging situation, every difficult conversation is a fork in the road. You can default to hardened control, or you can consciously choose the path of soft tenderness. And it takes real courage to deliver difficult feedback with genuine, unshielded care instead of hiding behind protective detachment or harshness. That courage is the strength.
Which brings us perfectly to making this practical, moving from the what and why to the how. The source insists, love is not a concept, it's a practice. This is where we need actionable steps. How do we do this amid the daily chaos of work?
Yeah, the focus shifts to the small, almost invisible actions. The micro behaviors that added up really define how you lead. These are intentional acts that interrupt the usual, often dehumanizing flow of how things get done. The text highlights 3 critical practices.
Okay, first up is the pause.
Yes, that tiny space you create before you react, especially when stressed or in conflict. That split second where you catch the impulse to defend yourself, to blame someone, to shut down, to fire back. We often mistake speed for effectiveness, right? Just get it done, react quickly. But taking that breath, creating that pause, that moment of stillness, the author often links to Eastern thought, that's where wisdom gets a chance to step in. It lets you shift from just reacting to responding thoughtfully, maybe compassionately. It could be the difference between sending an angry email and picking up the phone for a real conversation.
Makes sense? The second one is the tone.
This is about how you deliver the message, especially difficult messages. Truth can be harsh, right? Critical feedback, tough deadlines, bad news. But your tone determines whether that interaction damages the relationship or potentially strengthens it through honesty and care. Tone carries your vulnerability, your willingness to stay soft. It signals that you're supporting the person, even if you're addressing a problem with their work.
Okay, pause, tone. And a third is the focus. This is about where you direct attention, especially after something goes wrong.
Exactly. It's that crucial moment when you decide, do I focus on the mistake or do I focus on the potential for learning and growth? This ties right back to making people visible, especially the revealed leader's strength. So imagine a talented person on your team makes a big mistake, costs money, causes problems. A hard leader might focus only on the error. What went wrong? Who's to blame? What's the punishment? The conversation ends there. The leader practicing this soft strength pauses, uses a careful tone, and then shifts the focus. Okay, what did we learn from this? How can your insights from this experience help us build a better process? How can we use this failure to fuel future success? That's maybe the ultimate act of leadership love, truly believing in the person's future potential, even when their recent track record isn't great.
So when you strip everything else away, the titles, the targets, the org chart, what's left is this core of care. But the source is specific again. This isn't easy, feel-good care. It's a tougher, more resilient kind.
Right. Because the easy care is often reciprocal. You're kind, they're grateful, everyone feels good. It's transactional in its own way. The hard care, the real substance of it in leadership, is the care that keeps showing up, even when it's not thanked, maybe not even noticed, maybe not returned in kind. It's the sustained presence that quietly says, I'm still here. I still see your potential, even after that setback. That steady, sometimes unacknowledged presence, that's what builds deep trust and psychological safety.
And this whole practice of love, then, is really about fighting to stay human within systems that often push us towards the opposite. Systems prioritize efficiency, metrics, scale, things that can easily lead to treating people impersonally, dehumanizing them almost.
That's exactly it. Practicing love becomes a form of, well, almost radical resistance against that impersonal tide. It's about consciously choosing the human element within the system, often in tiny ways. The source gives really small, concrete examples. It's how you word a difficult email, making sure it carries dignity, not just data points. It's how you consciously breathe before responding to an unfair criticism or when you feel overwhelmed. These are the micro choices, day in and day out, that demonstrate your commitment to staying soft, staying present, staying human.
So the real test isn't when things are easy, but when you're under maximum pressure, when the system itself seems to demand indifference.
Absolutely. It's easy to be gracious when the numbers are good and everyone's happy. It's the practice of love, that discipline of the pause, the tone, the focus that allows you to hold on to your integrity, your decency, your relational wisdom, precisely when the system is screaming for speed, detachment, and hardness.
Wow. We've covered a lot of ground here, from, how we first experience love, maybe as kids, right through to these tiny moment-to-moment choices in a busy work week. It really connects our deepest personal stuff to our professional lives in a way we don't often talk about.
And I think the source brings it all together beautifully at the end. It says, look, whether you lead from that place of remembered abundance or you lead from the hard-won wisdom of revelation, both paths ultimately converge on the same immediate goal right now, to let others feel safe enough to grow.
Safety for growth. That's the outcome. That's the measure of this kind of leadership. The remembered leader creates it through calm and forgiveness. The revealed leader creates it by championing visibility and proving that recovery is real.
And that realization leads the text to its final, really profound reframing for anyone in a position of influence. The ultimate question, the author argues, isn't really how to lead better in terms of strategy, efficiency, tactics. The deeper, more fundamental question is how to love more wisely.
That just elevates the whole discussion, doesn't it? It moves leadership from just being about performance to being about character, foundational character. It implies that effective leadership is almost a natural result of developing relational wisdom and having that courage to stay soft.
And that choice, the consistent choice for softness over hardness, for seeing the unseen story, that's why the text concludes that maybe love, in this practiced, courageous sense, is the only language the world still truly understands underneath all the noise. And maybe, just maybe, it's the language it's still waiting to hear more of.
So if true strength really is that courage to stay soft, to maintain that vulnerability and presence, even when things are tough, we'll leave you with this thought to mull over this week. What's one specific moment, maybe a daily interaction you anticipate, where you could consciously choose tenderness over control, where you could resist that urge to harden up or push back defensively, and what impact might that single, small choice have on someone else's unseen story?